What does it mean to live to 150 years?
I'm an innovation consultant. For me, it's always about asking these curious questions.
I care more about health span than lifespan. We are actually driving those genes to be expressed more aggressively. We are shifting from a 20th century healthcare system that treats sick care to a 21st century system that has at the center of it well-being and preventive care.
Nancy, I'm so happy to have you here, Yani. Finally, we meet, and this is one of the topics that is super intriguing for me, and I'm sure it's going to be super intriguing for everyone. So I would love to know more about you, short intro about Nancy, and what got you into population health.
Thank you, Mohammed, for having me. Short intro about Nancy is difficult, but let's make it happen. So I'm in population health, as you mentioned, and population health, the word can be very vague. So what does that really mean? I'm the founder of MHW, Mourad Health and Wellness. It's a consultancy that works with organizations, different types of corporations, employers, insurers, health companies, with the main aim of taking care of the health of people at large scale, be it their employees, their members, and a large population within that that these organizations touch.
I'm an innovation consultant. For me, it's always about asking these curious questions about understanding the field. How do you see innovation reshaping the healthcare industry and population health practices precisely?
Okay, great question, Muhammad. So I definitely think, there are a lot of technicalities we can dig into, but when I look at the big picture, the most important innovation touching today the reality of population health is that we are shifting from a 20th century healthcare system that
Okay.
treats sick care to a 21st century system that has at the center of it well-being and preventive care.
Okay.
So that is shifting everything downstream to it, ensuring that more and more people stay on that left side of the spectrum that we spoke about and not progress into illness further down. And that is now possible compared to the past because we now have more tools, more technological advances, also higher scale of distribution of knowledge. A lot of things now go into it, and we can definitely speak about it. But the way I look at it, big picture, is really us trying to, we're done, if you want, worrying about germs to begin with. We're done worrying about, poverty and all of that from, not from a political perspective, but from resources and know-how. And now what used to necessarily kill us in a previous time or a previous era or century has been tackled.
Okay.
Even if you think about it today, anything, maybe except of some diseases like cancer, anything that happens to you now, you can go to the hospital and almost virtually get treated for it, right? But where we shifted as burden of diseases is more lifestyle illnesses. And those lifestyle illnesses are modifiable. And that's the beauty of why now that we tackled more existential survival-based healthcare, and we're dealing with more our own decisions that are making us sick, we are now being able and putting all that effort to increase the wellness of population towards reversing and fixing those illnesses.
I love what you said about lifestyles or lifestyle diseases. Would you like to elaborate a little bit about this? Because also, I feel it's linked to what you said, 21st century is more about prevention, while the 20th century was more about the treatment part. So this means that we need to gather new type of data. We need to be able to prevent something. You need to have immense wealth of data, and we need to be able to understand what drives this. And you're right, it is mostly a lifestyle. So when we talk about modern health, we talk a lot about how do you build a better lifestyle. Can you share more insights about this?
Yes, for sure. I mean, if you think about it, Muhammad, for almost all the top drivers today, when it comes to data, the statistics of illnesses are illnesses that are driven by our lifestyle. Think of cardiovascular health, think of
Okay.
diabetes, even cancers. They are largely driven by our behavior, not just unlike what used to be thought that it's purely genetic. Now we are shifting that mentality
Okay.
and understanding from research that we are actually driving those genes to be expressed more aggressively because of our lifestyle. And many other, hyperlipidemia is an example. So if you have high
Okay.
cholesterol, high blood pressure, low back pain as an example, almost every illness that you can think about today
Okay.
that hits an adult typically is exacerbated by their lifestyle or prevented by a healthy lifestyle.
So even if it's genetics, you are able to overcome these diseases now with a better lifestyle?
100%. And let me just to be specific on that statement with lifestyle. So I'll give you an example. You and I today are both born with a certain pool of genes, right? You might have for one specific condition, let's say I have a risk and let's say we both have a risk, right?
Okay.
And based on your lifestyle, what is today typically and largely known as the epigenetics field, which is how
Okay.
what you allow yourself to be submitted to from the food you eat, the physical activity, the air you breathe, the toxic metals or plastics you get exposed to or not. So everything environment related and behavior related can allow those genes either to be expressed or not be expressed. So
Okay.
it's like I have a key in my
Switch.
hand, a
Yeah.
switch. It's called lifestyle. And the idea of being able to modulate the gene expression has been proven by
Okay.
now. And actually, from a data point, statistic, it is now known that our genes modulate and regulate almost 20 to 30% of what you see in your health
Okay.
compared to the environment, which takes over 60 to 80% of what you
Interesting.
see in your health state. That's the power that I guess nature gave us
Yeah.
to
To control
to
it. Yeah.
control.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm giving you a pool and go figure what you do with it.
Okay. I mean, it seems easy, but I'm sure there are a lot of barriers that limit us and people in general, organizations, even governments to activate this in a way that makes it part of our daily behavior. What are some of these barriers?
I mean, of course, the first barrier, I guess, it's that it's the novelty of the space.
Okay.
And, when something is relatively new, it takes some time for it to propagate in a strategic way versus us starting to understand it, which could happen a bit, in an erratic way, like ad hoc way, just bubbly way, right?
Yeah.
Like everything in life. A bit like
Okay.
think of social media when it started.
Yeah. Yeah.
Imagine 2011, right?
Yeah.
I still remember sitting in New York one day and people around me and then like explaining to them what Twitter is in 2011,
Yeah. I can imagine.
So it's a bit like that. It took people 10, 15 years to figure it.
Yeah.
And it's now kind of mainstream. Even the older generation understands it, etc. So that is the biggest barrier, because now population health isn't the way we are looking at it older than 20 years, but also what is 20 years
It's
in
nothing.
in the time
Absolutely.
frame of
Yeah.
our history, especially when you think about the bureaucracy of large entities, right? Maybe you and I understand it, but for it to propagate effectively, become strategic, whether it's corporations, insurance companies, the government policies, that takes time, and that takes a lot of partnership coordination to
Yeah.
effectively happen between public and private
Absolutely. I
sectors.
mean, when you talk about public health, in my mind, it's something that is usually driven by governments. I mean, they it requires government level funding. It requires certain type of policies. Do you see this happening here in this part of the world? Because it's not, يعني, the change cannot happen from down to up. It needs to happen from top to bottom. Is it right in the way we have to tackle it? It should be driven by governments first, then everyone else will follow.
I definitely think, Muhammad, the role of the government in shaping policy, public health policy, is immense. Especially when you think about the who are the biggest influencers of influential powers, if you want, that impact our health.
Food bloggers,
Mainly fashionistas.
fashionistas.
So mainly it's larger capitalistic
Sure.
organizations. There is a humongous conflict of interest between, for example, the food industry and the narrative around public health and what you should eat and how
Yeah.
healthy you should live, and
Yeah.
count all the other aspects of life. Okay, so the role of a top-down approach is extremely important. At the same time, of course, I always say revolutions come bottom up.
Yeah.
So, for things to happen, also the power of education and distribution and socializing the concept, the culture of wellness, and what I believe has been happening over the past 20, 30 years now, maybe even less. Um, Now, you asked me about the region. I do see the edge of this region as governments is not necessarily the same edge as other countries where you see it very much top down, like the
Okay.
US and Europe and some other places like Singapore. Maybe what I've been seeing and feeling is that the core role of the government here has been a role of an enabler, of a
Okay.
catalyst. If you think about it, the same is happening in innovation.
Yeah.
The governments here play an infrastructure enabling
Yeah.
role.
They build the
The
infrastructure.
ecosystem is very healthy to allow spaces to thrive. I'm seeing something very similar from a public health perspective, with a lot of delegation to the private, but also empowerment and enablement. Things like, I recall recently, for example, a few years ago, we had in the insurance space policies of regulating data of insurance.
Okay.
Today you have a lot of effort that has been happening on nutrition policy by governments. Diabetes has been some focus. A huge role the governments here in the UAE took was in the COVID-19.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean,
That
it
I
was
guess no
a
one can
brilliant job.
forget.
Yeah.
A brilliant
Absolutely.
role. And that was more top down, as I
Yeah.
see it, compared to what I see in other places, more of enablement and
Yeah.
distribution of, if you want,
And
knowledge.
we see, for example, recently we all saw the Dubai Fitness Challenge, which is a yearly event that happens
Yes.
for a month. And I think it's a government-led initiative. They try to push people to become active, to run. You see His Highness Sheikh Fazza leading the pack and leading everyone on Sheikh Zayed. So these are some of the activities that I believe governments are doing, especially in this part of the world, to help people. But is this enough when we talk about population health? Is this what we talk about when it comes to population health? These kind of programs, do you feel will help drive innovation or change or impact in communities?
Great question. It certainly is an initiative. I like to compare everything in public health to make it simple to things in business. Okay.
Okay.
So today, when you launch a product, what do? You go and activate it in a mall, at the Kite Beach. You do an activation. Activation. What does it create? It elevates the level of knowledge of population
Yeah,
about
awareness
something.
about
It's
something.
awareness, right?
Absolutely.
So that's a very similar activity that I see around one, the idea that the government of the UAE is telling people we do care about the culture of wellness. We are trying to motivate you. It's led by a figure that is highly respected and loved like Fazza. So obviously
Yeah,
you see every year he draws millions of people
absolutely.
to
Yeah.
run there. It certainly remains more of a cultural catalyst, if you want. But this is obviously, this is not a strategy. This is a one-time event. This is not a policy even. Okay, so it's very important to. It's again like if I compare it to from an activation to a roadmap or strategy in business.
Just to encourage people to
Yeah. Like you build your strategy in business and you do an activation for a product. So that's exactly the same. It's an activation compared to a strategy on health and wellness and population health, which is a completely different.
But we need to build a better ecosystem for population health to become part of our daily life.
For sure. I mean, look, public health is in everything around you.
Yeah.
From the chair you're sitting on right now, to the light you wake up to in the morning, to the attitude of your neighbor when they knock on your door, or the person you work with, right? Emotional, physical. There's a if I make it very simple, there's a diagram I always love to refer to in thought leadership, but also when we work on strategy. It's something very simple and concentric, but I feel explains things very well. It starts from a center in the middle, which is the individual. And then all the concentric models around it starts family, and then work, and then city, and then country, right?
Okay.
And so all these environments beyond your own self are areas where you can impact public health. So imagine the scope of cooperation, collaboration, bottom up, top down, that needs to happen for true population health to happen. Now let me be a bit pragmatic here, right? So let's talk about, for example, let's go into one of those layers. So where we focus is very much what you call workplace wellness, or wellness even outside of the workplace, but that is enabled and funded and empowered by organizations and companies. Okay. So that's one aspect of allowing people to get more resources to get access to preventive care. But I'll give you a counter example to it. If I'm doing all of this to people, but then you live in a city where walking is almost very, very difficult. So you're just making it so much harder to elevate that.
To activate the mission.
Your environment is stronger than you, than an individual, right? So I can educate and give resources on meditation and how you work out and all of this. But then if your lifestyle is not designed to make you do it intuitively, then I'm very much raising the bar for you to adopt it. Okay, so it's a cooperation of all these spaces together to make health happen.
You talked about wellness, and you used a statement that I love a lot, and actually it made me think a lot. You used the statement, the future is wellness. I would love to know more about this. For me, when it comes to the future is wellness, it's an intriguing perspective, because we live in an age where everyone is talking about sustainability, everyone is talking about AI, and now you're saying, no, the future is going to be about us, about humans, and about our own wellness. How do you see this? Can you explain this perspective for everyone? Because I love it.
I love that you mention AI and sustainability, because I very much see them in line with human wellness, right?
Okay.
It's the same agenda, by the way. Let me tell you a little bit. So it all starts, the way I see it, from a culture that is now progressing into wellness. And we just spoke about the idea that the 21st century now is about prevention, right? So we have managed to reduce the burden of diseases from germs, what we call communicable diseases. We have reduced almost now the pain of other kind of healthcare related problems. And as you see, more and more, everything we're doing today in our lives, including AI, including sustainability, is to drive increased well-being and wellness. It's an interchangeable word I use. From a physiological or physical perspective, we now have more than ever tools to allow us to, create predictive analytics like AI, allow you to look at your data, decode your health data, augment yourself. Where do you think we're going? We're going into higher and higher health span, higher longevity, more self-augmentation. That's that. If you
Yeah.
if we take a step back at history, that has been the trend. And now we're only exponentially increasing it because of all the technological exponential growth that we're witnessing.
Absolutely. AI can accelerate the span of life and a better wellness because we'll be able to process enough data to find the right solutions for humans. But at the same time, we're seeing that AI is also playing a very negative or has a very negative impact on our mental health. I'm sure you heard about this boy who committed suicide a few weeks ago because he started this conversation with the AI model on character.ai. And for me, this will also impact mental health. And AI
Right.
is a sword with two edges. How do you see AI playing a positive, yet how do we prevent the negative part of it?
Absolutely. Look, I mean, AI is definitely not the only answer for wellness to begin with. The ultimate answer, I always like to think big picture and not to be lost in the details of the technology, okay? The biggest picture that we're seeing today, it's what I call a wellness revolution. It's a mindset revolution before even the tool, okay?
Okay.
Now, AI is now an enabling tool from medicine and people allowing to access faster conversations and more info, etc. I think of it as one of the sharpest tools we've ever had in history. And so imagine you have a very sharp tool at hand. Like you said, it means you can do a lot with it, but also it can be very, very harmful.
Yeah.
Okay. And the way I think of the harm on the emotional and mental health of AI, definitely it's a very huge thing that we have to be very careful of. And I guess we've already entered a new era where, okay, you create an advancement and then you see the disadvantages of it. What I worry about when it comes to AI is first, what I really think about your sense of agency, right? So today, each and every what does it mean anymore if almost everything you're writing as an email, as a business proposal, as even a post on social media, almost everything now is possibly being told to you by AI.
Yeah.
So that strong sense of agency for our well-being is extremely important. If you think about it, even poets have written about this for years and years, right? Philosophers, it's your ability to feel you have that willpower, that sense of agency on your life and the world and your environment. And we've seen it a bit prior to AI with social media and algorithms now. I like to say, people now travel just to take a photo and post it and get the likes, right? Like,
Yeah,
imagine
true.
how much you're being shaped
Yeah.
with that. So that's number one. So the second point, so there's first the sense of agency, and then think about it today, Muhammad. You and I had the chance to, over these years, from a work, from university, from studies perspective, to actually have that cognitive capacity and capability to structure a thought, to build a strategy, to create something that requires digging deeper into
Absolutely.
that circuitry of your brain and nurture it and
Yeah.
develop it. Today, I look at the new generation, and of course, us moving forward, it's
Absolutely.
becoming increasingly a reliance on the machine for you to do that. But you have maybe already nurtured it, so you're not that much at risk. But now, with all the new generation, it means they are not developing that one of the most important circuitry of
Skills.
our brains, which is critical thinking, strategic thinking, being able to structure a thoughts and the flow of ideas. Now you tell me, okay, our destination is to merge with the machine, right? I
Yeah.
guess.
That's what
I
Yuval
guess
Harari talks about. Yeah.
I guess that's the future. And maybe there will be a detrimental phase before that where we start seeing a generation or two of people that actually don't have so much strategic thinking skills because we're evolving to not use it anymore and rely on the machine before we actually merge with the machine, right? Like there's every action reaction to a new
Yeah.
invention. And the third aspect is what you talk about, which is the character AI example. And the idea that a teenager boy and his mom was actually claiming that he's been communicating with the
Yeah.
machine for months before
Absolutely.
committing, unfortunately, suicide. And here it goes back to also to what age are we allowing this technology to happen? Social media has been for years now. We've been talking about this
Yeah.
for years. You have all the world at the pocket of your child,
Australia stopped it now
which
for
is
banned it for under
fantastic, and
16. Yeah.
hopefully more and more countries follow. See, like there is always an invention, a problem, you figure it out after, and then a response. But that takes always few years, and of course a lot of political involvement. And I guess the same with AI. But the problem we have is that the more and more advanced we get with the tool, the sharper the hurt we get from that
Okay.
tool.
Yeah.
So
I mean, but I will go back to one point that you mentioned before. If we are waiting for things to happen, it will be very much like we're trying to solve a disease in the 21st century with the 20th century mindset, treating it. While you're saying 21st century is about preventing it, prevention.
yeah,
And we have to know how to control AI from a preventive perspective so we
absolutely.
don't reach the. And I think
Absolutely.
this is a critical part
And
of.
unfortunately, we're always reactive as a
Well,
species until we feel the danger.
absolutely, absolutely. Nancy, we always talk about moonshots at Obsession, and this is something I would love to pick your brain on it as well. When it comes to the healthcare industry, we have some big moonshots that are happening now, and for me, they are really breakthrough that can also challenge not only AI, that challenge humanity. And I would love to see your perspective on these from a population health perspective because they're transformative in my opinion. One of them is what Calicos are working on, solving death as a moonshot. That's a big thing. Looking at aging as a cause for death and trying to treat it and to expand life, or our dear friend Elon Musk and Neuralink,
Your friend,
and
not
I
mine.
love I love Elon Musk. I love his brain and the way he's looking at the world. But Neuralink is also something that will challenge humanity at essence, at core. We're going to change as a humans. We're going to become more bionic. How do you see these innovations, these breakthrough or these moonshot projects that are being developed now from the perspective of a population health expert?
Great question, Hamad. And look, for me, I always like, are they inevitable? I don't think so. Whether I like it or not, I believe there are things that might hit us. It could crash us until we realize it's actually too far-fetched. It might disappoint some people that we might not reach it actually. The Neuralinks might actually be too underwhelming to nature. And what I mean by this is our brain is actually far more complex than a lot of people may think and
Hopeful thinking.
aspire
Yeah,
for.
100%.
Is it impossible? It's not.
Yeah.
But I always like to take a non-FOMO approach to wellness, non-FOMO approach to humanity, a very universe, nature centered approach to who we are. At the end of the day, we are, organic species. And yes, we are augmenting to ourselves to places, I don't know, if to extinction maybe, hopefully not.
Yeah.
But if you ask me what I envision for a moonshot in population health, for me, I think we reached a very, although a lot of people think today that we're not doing great, on the micro scale of it, of the last 20, 30, 40 years, yes, we're not doing that great because of all the chronic diseases, and you think of your grandfather, how he used to plant, and
Yeah,
you feel like they were healthier, right?
absolutely.
But on the macro, as we spoke, we're actually going up.
Okay.
So now where I would love to see things go is tackle wellness and chronic illnesses, and augmenting this health span. I care more about health span than lifespan,
Oh,
because
okay. That's an
longevity
interesting point.
alone is, what does it mean to live to 150 years? There are so many challenges.
If you're sick, absolutely.
If you're sick, and even not sick, Muhammad, 150 years, where is the sense of urgency in living to one? What is let me ask you this simple question. What is the sense of urgency of coming today and shooting this podcast if you know you have another 100 years to do it, to achieve your career, to, same for seeing your kids, spending time with your parents. Even think about it from a financial burden perspective, how much money you would need to continue surviving for all. I mean, it's a very existential philosophical
It is,
question,
but
right?
it's a very interesting question because, I believe this question was the question that humanity have been trying to answer forever. We always wanted to live longer, or we always wanted to live forever. So that was a big
Yeah,
part of,
immortality. But we will never be able to live forever. I love something that um, Yuval Noah Harari
yeah,
also references. I like to, the idea that you will never become immortal, you will
yeah,
become amortal. Immortality versus immortality. What does that mean? It means you are still somehow flesh.
sure,
So, a truck can hit you, although you might not die
yeah,
from chronic disease or cancer,
absolutely,
but you might crash in a plane. And so
sure,
imagine all the anxiety that you would live with, knowing that you can live to 150 technically, but in reality, you might die because of an accident,
yeah,
right? So for me, the way I look at this, yes, we actually have already increased our longevity from typically 40 years, thousands of years ago,
true,
to today, 80 years.
yeah,
But then, as long as it continues making sense for us from a natural perspective, from this world that brought you, we think we're too much stronger than this world. We're
yeah.
conquering the world. The world is looking at us.
Not stronger than nature,
We're
absolutely.
never stronger than nature. That's for me the anchor of any thinking about the future. And the way I would love to see, and where we're working into shifting that is, I envision societies and communities where, with all now the beauty of the tools and predictive analytics we have, and access to care and digital education, and everything you can think about, also going back to basics, having them with us, but living again back to basics. What do I mean by this? I would love to see more modern communities, or modern cities that are built around nurturing a sense of community, that are built around having more trees and gardens around you,
So
that
going back to nature.
going back to the basics. Now that you are too far ahead, which is, by the way, is happening, as you can start sensing, more return to yoga and meditation, which have been tools used by
Yeah,
thousands
yeah,
of
yeah.
years ago. You can see now more talk about organic food and,
Yeah.
planting trees. And
It's a brilliant point, and if you come to think of it, I've had a lot of conversations lately with people my age, or people approaching retirement. I'm not that.
you're too far,
Yeah,
Muhammad, for this.
I was hoping to retire in my 50s. Not going to happen.
I don't see
But
you retiring, frankly, at all, especially with the
absolute,
obsession at the center of your career.
absolutely, I don't see myself retiring. But a lot of people started talking about, I want to buy a house in the mountains
Yeah,
and just go there.
Permalife.
Or I have a friend of mine, a very successful business man. He's someone who's smart. He leads a big business, and this guy is saying he's been obsessed in the past like 2 3 years, especially that he's involved in a lot of AI projects, saying I want to become a farmer.
Yeah.
I want to go farm, get a couple of chicken, and I want my own health to be different. I want my own wellness to be experienced differently.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned a brilliant point. I would love if you can repeat it as well, because I think it's a smart approach. It's not lifespan, it's health span.
Yeah.
How can we live healthier for a longer period rather than living longer just for the sake of living?
Absolutely. And when I think of health span, so, when we speak about always the objective of humanity, you mentioned something around uh, not dying or living
Yeah,
the longest.
living.
People often forget about what we have been seeking for years as well, which is quality of life
Yeah,
for thousands of years, right?
absolutely.
So there is the ability to live the longest possible without hurting your anymore, without playing against nature to a certain. I think there's a limit to it.
Yeah.
Okay, what is that limit? Is it 100 years? Is it 90 years? I don't know, but I definitely strongly believe there is a place where life has to end.
Hmm.
And I don't even think nature will allow it not to end. That's a
Yeah.
false aspiration a lot of people have. Good luck for them. Lovely moonshot. I have other moonshots
Yeah,
the
yeah.
way I think
I'm
about
still
it.
waiting to hear your moonshot, but
Yeah,
yeah.
so the idea of quality of life is definitely something that excites me more.
Hmm.
Of course, when I say quality of life, also it's not just physically, but your well-being. So living a life of meaning, of purpose, a life of good relations, a life of being in tune with nature, a life
Hmm.
that you end happily and say, you know what? I was given a code. I believe everyone has a code in
Hmm.
us. I was able to decode it. I was able to give it back to the
Hmm.
world. And now my mission is
Is
done.
done.
So for me, the ultimate moonshot that is an aspiration and something I work for every day is to improve the well-being of people
Hmm.
while they are here through the biggest possible education and enlightenment on three areas: their physical health, how you take care of this miracle body that I call it's a
Hmm.
miracle that was
Hmm.
shaped for millions of years to get us here, how you learn to unearth your and understand your passion in life and your mission,
Hmm.
and learn to execute on it. So that's number two, because that's a huge element of our well-being. And you and I guess, sitting here today, have done a lot of work prior
Yeah,
to today to get here, and also a lot of work to learn to
absolutely.
execute on it, not just to know. Okay. And number three, to learn the essentials of what makes you win friends, win people,
Hmm.
have a healthy interdynamic
Hmm.
relationship with the world beyond yourself. So
Yeah.
there's the self and the other.
Yeah.
And everything that enables that reality for me is the moonshot, which I think we have still a long way to go to, because we keep drilling on the technology that allows the hacking of the system, but along the way we should not forget the big picture.
Hmm.
Okay, so I can give you an example on how AI today is shaping medicine, how AI today is shaping our
Yes.
health, which we didn't necessarily talk too much about,
Hmm.
but it's shaping it, even technology beyond AI. So today, in my opinion, one of the biggest things that changed our health on the prevention is access to information that we never had access
Absolutely.
to 30 years ago. If I wanted to get one of those brilliant books about understanding health and my body, it would have been a big endeavor of research,
Hmm.
right? So today, access to even people
Information.
creating courses, social
Yeah.
media, of course, it comes
Open
with
knowledge.
open
Yeah.
knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Democratizing knowledge. That for me is one of the biggest revolutions in wellness. And then access to care today with
Hmm.
tools like telemedicine, remote monitoring. You are getting
Yeah.
more and more. I like to call it, you are sitting here and the world is coming to you to take care of you.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a huge thing beyond even AI. Now, AI is doing few things. for both the patient or the person and the provider or the caregiver, be it the
Yeah.
doctor or the health coach or anyone taking care of people. For us as people, it's giving you a lot of ability to augment your knowledge beyond your brain's knowledge, right? Because our biggest flaw as a brain when it comes to information is that we have a limited memory, okay, a
Yeah.
limited capacity somehow,
Sure.
compared to AI that can scrap the knowledge of centuries and
Billions.
millions of years and tell you what it
Yeah.
is, okay? So the ability to augment yourself as a person, to learn, to chat, to have, patient AI, a chatbot, give you, tell me more, tell me more. And then from a doctor's perspective and also people who are supporting the patient, one of the biggest advantages today is that you can, for example, diagnostics is a huge
Yeah.
promise in my opinion. There is so much data we keep at the table in the pixels of the radiologists. So the radiologists today have a huge power to reduce pain and suffering, even death to people, by augmenting themselves with
Yeah.
the AI, right? And so many other things that we could
Yeah.
spend hours on.
I've seen this AI tool. I'm not sure if you've checked it or seen it before. So this machine with this super advanced AI, you go on it and it actually traces
Yes.
everything in your body for $230 or something like that. It's a very low investment, and it can tell you exactly what kind of disease you can encounter. So you're going back
Yes,
to your point,
absolutely.
preventive.
The retina today is being the eye. They say the eye is the window of the soul.
Yeah.
The eye is the window of a lot of diseases,
Yeah.
from, cardiovascular to diabetes. The
Okay.
things that AI is now being given through the retina. Alzheimer's is another
Okay.
very big example. And the level of precision and accuracy that AI can predict something happening in your body, no human can conquer. Okay, so that's immense. And then you have all the field of predictive analytics, where I can give my AI, ideally from an AI perspective, I want to be able to look at Muhammad by year 20 of his life, with all the data that we've had about your health, your
Yeah.
potential illness, dump it into AI and predict what could be some of the diseases that you might face in your life, and intervene in the right time to prevent it. Okay? But let me pause for a second here. All of this is beautiful. But when you look at the interventions after that, okay? So if I want to prevent something that I believe Muhammad has, and you go back and you look at almost every intervention, it all goes back to the basics.
Yeah.
We work on nutrition, physical activity. Yes, there are some supplementation and medications that allow things to be avoided. So a bit of therapeutics there on top of lifestyle. But mostly the biggest aspect of it is lifestyle. So now let me ask you this question. What is the point of sophistication to begin with, if we know that the end point goes
It
back to
goes back
nature
to
and living a healthy lifestyle?
yeah. I mean that's a brilliant point. I feel like in everything we talk about now, we're going back to the basics, to the fundamentals.
Absolutely. Because we are from nature and to nature.
Absolutely. I mean, there is a kind of a circle we're going through. The simplest thing,
Yes.
talking about it from a technology perspective, definitely you have Netflix, let's say. I mean, if you remember in our old days, we used to watch TV and wait from one week to another to watch an
Yes.
episode. Then Netflix came, and now
Every
we're
Saturday
every Saturday,
morning.
or then Netflix came, and suddenly we're binge watching, and now
Yes.
we're going back to the same things. We're waiting for, and even technology is going back to the old business models. And it's very similar to our nature. We're going
Yes.
back now. We want to become farmers. We want to work out better. We want to eat better
Yeah.
because we skipped this. Somehow it's been a very
The Industrial Revolution mainly forced us to, to sit in offices,
yeah.
to have homes that are very industrialized and buildings and
And talking about it from an office perspective, from a home perspective, we're witnessing also the rise of what we call smart homes, smart offices, IoT, because when we talk about preventive medicine or we want to gather data to be able to process these data to prevent something, smart homes, smart offices, smart experiences are going to become also part of the future. How
yeah.
do you see that? I mean, how do you see this driving this whole wellness and the future is
Yeah,
wellness?
I think the wearables, the health wearables, and the lifestyle wearables have created a big revolution in the way we collect, understand from patient and also care provider perspective. When it comes to smart homes, smart offices, I strongly believe we have to be very careful what we use it for because again we go back to your environment, so that's the home you enter to every day. So if it's in my opinion more and more we should look at it as an intervention or a set of data collection that actually optimize your wellness. Things like, okay, now it's 7 p.m. onward, we need to dim the light because now we know that so much junk light is actually
Yeah,
cancerous to
yeah,
a high extent. Maybe if I sense the air quality is being reduced, something is gonna tell me and I'm gonna
absolutely.
fix it. Compared to, a smart home where I tell Siri to,
Yeah,
turn off my music instead of getting up and turning it. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
So everything that enables our, I go back to our natural health is is fantastic and allow us to proactively, if you want, become faster at detecting and doing that. That's that.
I love what you said. I think it's nice to look at it. And I think it's critical actually to look at it from not an entertainment perspective, because this is how we see it in
Yeah.
movies like
And
Siri
laziness,
and a
right?
laziness perspective towards an environment that is designed for my
Right.
own wellness, to
Yes.
understand my own needs. Is it a mental wellness? Is it a
Yes.
emotional wellness? Is
Yeah, I
it
love
a,
that.
I
Like,
think that's definitely
suddenly your speaker popping up with a meditation, knowing that you come
absolutely.
back at 7 and you're
Yeah,
tired and stressed.
yeah.
Yeah,
And your
absolutely. I
barbecue is
guess.
cooking it.
Yeah, I guess as long as it speaks to you,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
To your natural needs, to your nervous system, to your body that requires
Mm.
certain conditions that are healthy to you, versus increased convenience, increased gluttony, increased
Yeah, yeah,
laziness, right? So
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. Okay, let's go back to, because again, I love the statement, future is wellness. And I want to go back to the fundamentals as well, to be able to design the future and the future of wellness as well. We have to be able to build the right fundamentals. We call it in innovation, we call it the fundamentals of innovation are a mindset of innovation,
Mm.
the ecosystem of innovation, and the roadmap to be able to take whatever we create to market. What do you believe are the challenges for a better mindset for wellness, and especially for corporates, for people within their homes, or for nations as well? And if you look at so the mindset aspect, I would love to hear your thoughts here. And when it comes to building the right ecosystem, what do you believe are the key pillars of a wellness ecosystem in the future?
Hmm. So let's start with the challenges. And from a mindset perspective, I love this because everything begins with
With
a
the mindset,
mindset.
absolutely.
I strongly believe there are two areas there that are very important. The first one, all of us on an individual and leadership level, we have to learn to unlearn. We
Mm,
have to begin by unlearning a lot of the things that we know about health, wellness, everything around us, from the milk you drink, to the
mm,
table you sit on, to the quality of the clothes maybe you are putting on your body. and realizing that what we got accustomed to is not necessarily what is good for us. It just happened and we adopted it as something necessary. So that's a very important mindset to adopt, because this is what continues shaping a change. And the second one, specifically for from an investment perspective, for
Okay.
leadership, for CEOs and people at the top,
Hmm.
the idea that unhealthy is lucrative and healthy is not
Hmm.
is not necessarily true. You can build a business that revolves around wellness of people and sustainability of the planet,
Hmm.
that still creates value to people, that still puts
Absolutely.
money in your pocket, that still reduces the risk on this planet.
Hmm.
And it's far more sustainable because we are
True.
waking up. So sooner or later, people will stop eating that chocolate that is full of sugar, that is not natural. So
Absolutely.
sooner or later,
Hmm.
I invite every investor in the space of everything that touches people to reconsider how you put wellness at the center, and begin by thinking that it is still business viable.
Yeah.
It's actually more sustainable, because
Interesting.
short-termism is maybe bringing you money, but on the long
Absolutely.
run, there's an awakening.
Yeah.
So
So you have
do
to
it
find the
now,
balance.
or you will die, you know?
That's definitely on the mindset aspect.
Yeah.
And when you think about the ecosystem of the future of wellness,
Mm.
what would be the key pillars for this ecosystem?
It definitely has to do with the education of the individual.
Okay.
It has to do with the power and the role that corporations play in their lives. So your work,
Nice.
Governments, and what are they doing and how they're enabling, and maybe like the private sector that I was just
This
talking
collaboration
about.
between.
The private, from all the companies that create solutions, and how you put wellness at the center versus being the power that shifts the health of people to illness.
I think you said it brilliantly when it comes to the mindset, that the mindset is one, we have to accept it. So we need to educate people. And then we have to have the willingness to invest behind it. That's a mindset aspect. But then when we do that, we have to put it in practice. And this is where you build the ecosystem. So an ecosystem of wellness is, in my opinion, based on what I got from you now, it's making sure we have open data. So we're able to gather this data, have the human at the center of this experience. We have to have the willingness to invest in wellness from an organization perspective, from a government perspective.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot. But how do we build an ecosystem designed for the future of wellness? And I think it is about data. It's about putting the human at the center of any experience. So
Yes.
is it an office? Is it a home? Humans needs to be at the center of designing the wellness experience. Access to data. We need to be also open with data, but also with certain restrictions.
Guardrails.
And I believe also we need to have part of the ecosystem is making sure the government and the organization, the private sector, can work together. Is this
Absolutely.
a good summary of how we have to build an ecosystem for the future?
Absolutely. And I really think it all starts from this mindset point that you spoke about, a mindset of sustainability, of humanity, in the sense of where are we going? And it's not sustainable. And when I say sustainable, not from a planet perspective as pure planet,
Yeah.
but as a species perspective.
Nancy, my last question. Can greatness exist without obsession?
Absolutely not, Muhammad. I really believe that in every greatness, there is tremendous obsession.
Nice. Nancy, thank you so much for this
Thank
beautiful,
you for this
inspiring,
beautiful conversation.
insightful conversation. I loved it. I know I learned a lot from you. I'm sure everyone who will listen to this episode will learn a lot. Again, thank you for your time, for your knowledge, and for the beautiful smile.
Awesome. Let's
Thank
stay
you.
obsessed.